Welcome back to the Kikao session. In the previous session, I liked a very good idea, which I will come back to for the interest of our viewers. You talked of the United States of Africa, and that unicity of the continent is a great thing. And it's now being translated, I would say, into policies and commitment by the AFTA you talked about, opening a big market at the continental level where people can trade services, but also products, including agricultural products. That is a fantastic thing. As you said, I hope that it will be implemented as it was thought about. Now, you talked about the specificity of Africa in different regions, which is not contradictory at all to this.
Yeah.
And indeed, we have regions which are very, where we have a lot
very
of rain.
fast, yeah.
Yes, we have the Sahel region with less rain, but with other specificities, and we can adapt our crops to those specificities of the regions.
And our transformation plans according to those.
Yeah, that will be fantastic. And then we open the market with this new unity of the African continent. And then we tailor the strategies to each one of those regions. I think those two ideas, if we combine them very meticulously, that will lead the transformation of the agricultural sector. Now, with all that said, what could be the success stories that we have in agricultural transformation, first across the world and in our continent, Africa? Do you give it the first shot?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, there are documented success stories in terms of agricultural transformation. For example, in Asia, where I come from, where I lived for so many years of my life and worked for almost 20 years there before coming to Africa 12 years back, there are success stories from Korea, from Thailand, from Malaysia, from Vietnam, and more recently Bangladesh is making strong progress too. But I will particularly highlight the Thailand story. In the transformation process, there are different phases. Thailand started with something like getting agriculture moving from the 1910 to 1960, where they established a research and extension system across the country, initiated labor and land reforms, and started foreign trade agreements. From 1961 to 1985, they moved towards making agriculture as a contributor to the national growth.
Yes.
Especially focusing on high value crops and focusing on export oriented schemes and strengthening again the standards to meet the international trade. And then they moved towards agriculture as an integrator of modern macroeconomy. And today, Thailand is one of the best producers and sellers of baby corn industry. The baby corn market produces millions of dollars worth economy to Thailand. Similarly, high value crops, export oriented nature, incentives to farmers who grow those high value crops, food chains, as well as contract farming to meet those targets. And most recently, the Thai government has announced a national digital transformation plan. National digital transformation plan. So trying to get digital agriculture into being actually in every province of Thailand. So to me, this is one of the major success stories that we need to emulate. Maybe we need to tweak it depending upon our context.
Adapt it to the conditions of this continent. And this is something which happened in just 3 decades.
In 3 decades.
So it can happen.
It can
happen quickly.
Yes.
Do we have some cases in Africa?
Yeah, we do. If you look at Ethiopia, for instance, Ethiopia has made tremendous progress in agriculture. Largely because it has incentivized the smallholder farmers to be able to sell what they produce on an exchange system that is near perfect. So people are incentivized to produce more and therefore add value to the economy. You know, we used to have a lot of information on farming, on many things from Ethiopia. Now, but because of the conflicts and all that, Ethiopia would have been another matter entirely. If you look at Rwanda, for instance, look at Nigeria, where I come from, there are many, many innovations now, beginning from the ATA, the Agricultural Transformation Agenda, to the Agricultural Promotion Policy. Government has taken the farmers along. And then farmers are incentivized to, or people generally in the private sector are incentivized to really invest in agriculture now. I mean, I for one, I deprecate corruption. But I have seen an example in Sussex, in Winston House. You know, I attended some of the discussions there. The Winston or Wilson Park is a house that was built from the process of corruption. But it is being used now as a center for discussing issues towards the SDGs. And there are communications there that make you a spokesperson at the UN. You know, but you know, all the people who stole money from Africa should be advised to come and invest in agriculture in Africa, and then we will have the best for it. Now, you know, there are many things that I mentioned. I mentioned the idea of United States of Africa. Africa has been doing a lot of things. You mentioned the issue of CADEP. This is literally African. Then there is AFTA now that has the potential to really make all African countries specifically interested in AFTA because of the comparative advantages that they have in certain crops that they produce. Take, for instance, if a country in the Sahel region is capable of producing something seamlessly, all other parts of Africa should patronize it.
Yes.
So that it will export these things to Africa. And then, you know, this idea of Africa or African countries, scaling up or meeting conditionalities of global gap, for instance, it will make your produce acceptable in Europe. But you do global gap in Africa.
Yeah.
The African population is very high. The demands for what you produce are very high. You should be able to have good agricultural practices for Africa. Have a healthy and safe food for the African countries, so that we will all work together. If you look at EU, for instance, EU is very strong because there is cohesion.
Yes.
There are certain things that in fact, what I tell you is there is absolute racism in all the things that you do in Africa. They don't get you don't get to sell them in Europe, because there is collusion between all of the European countries to say that what you produce is not good enough. But they informally take what we do and through the back door there, and they're all in the markets. If you go anywhere in Europe, you find so many things with origins in Africa that have been taken, you know, informally. But from the governmental point of view, through diplomacy and all that, they tell you that you have to do this, you have to do this.
There are standards which need to be upheld, and this, I think you touched it at a certain time. Thailand met the standard so that they can be able to export the product and meet the requirement of the global market. And Africa is doing it. Actually, we are importing. All the transactions are happening, but the standards, of course, need to be upheld by our farmers, and there is a great effort on this. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges we talked about in the introduction, but also the requirement of transforming the agriculture, technology, finance, and others. But now we are talking of some success stories across the world, and in Africa we have some. My brother here talked about them. When you look at all those and then project your sight in the future, how does the road to the future look like? If you look at 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what will be the agriculture, and which level will we have reached in this endeavor of transforming agriculture into a vibrant economic sector.
I think we need to take some important trends here. What's happening in Africa? First, most important thing is about climate change.
Climate change.
Agricultural transformation plans need to make African countries much more resilient and adaptive to the changes that are happening in the climates and the implications in terms of increasing frequency of abiotic stresses as well as biotic stresses. In the last 1 decade, there have been 6 devastating epidemics of invasive pests in this continent. 6 devastating epidemics. And those things will continue to happen. How well positioned are we to tackle the changes that are happening there? That's the number one aspect we need to look into. The second aspect is about malnutrition.
Malnutrition.
There's out of over 800 million people who are malnourished in the world, almost 230 million people are in this continent. This is almost 23.2% or so. This is an alarming fact. It's not just about agricultural transformation, is about food security.
And it has a far-reaching
implication on our economy. The disabilities and the capacities to make agriculture vibrant in Africa is not happening because there are large sectors of pockets of malnourishment. So this is where I think we need to
focus on those.
We need to focus on not just food security lens, but also nutritional security, environmental security.
As a farmer and as an African and a champion of this wide Africa, where connections between nations are, where do you see the transformation of agriculture from now to the next 10 years, 20 years?
I'm hopeful that Africa will be different if we abide by all the things that we are mentioning. You need to do climate smart agriculture.
Climate smart agriculture.
You need to do a lot of mechanization.
Mechanization.
You need to do a lot of innovation. You need to be focused on policy implementation. You need to have transparency. You need to attract the private sector. You need to be fair or to treat fairly the gender issue and youth. The population of youth in Africa is almost 60%. You need to incentivize the youth to embrace agriculture, not to look upon it as a drudgery that must be done. People should wake up. I trained as an architect. I diversified into agriculture. I made good money in agriculture. I mean in architecture. I diversified in agriculture, and I'm here now 22 years. And I've been advocating for agriculture. I will tell you one simple story. I embrace biotechnology, and I don't see any connection between GM crops and any disease. I've read voraciously on this subject. I've attended seminars and conferences. Nobody has told me that there is an established connection between, or nexus between cancer, say, and GMOs. I've attended programs, as I told you, in the best universities in the world, where people came together and talked about all this, and I have seen not that. And I think the development of GM crops can go a long way in Africa. Absolutely. To take us out of poverty and to make us competitive in our economies. So a lot of things,
need to be done.
That you need to do to take Africa to the level that it needs to be. We need to enhance our processing capacity. We need to add value to what we produce, and people should be coming to Africa for what we can offer. I mean, I used to go to the Americas, UK, I mean Europe and all that for shopping and sightseeing. I want a situation where people don't just come to Africa to look at elephants and all that.
Yes.
They need to come here and get good food and get things
buy
to take
food
to back.
also.
And so this is what I foresee happening in the next couple of years if the right kind of focus is given to agriculture.
I think I took from your submissions that first, Africa cannot feed its population if we continue to use a hoe and a cutlass. We need absolutely to bring in modern tools to enhance productivity. Modern tools mean mechanization, mean knowledge and technology in all its form, including what you concluded with. GMO is one of the technology. It is an option that we should also be presenting to our farmers. This is possible. It can shield you against or reduce the pressure with those different diseases, pressures, epidemics that you talked about. And then we need absolutely to work on reducing the post-harvesting losses.
Yes.
And this is through a number of technologies, but also through processing those produces, adding value and reducing the losses. And that will lead to bringing an increased income to the farmers and contribute more significantly to the economic development of our continent as the policies are being implemented and the market being widely opened on the continental level. I think we cannot wait to see in 10 years the agricultural sector in Africa being transformed into something which is attractive, not only for the villagers, but also for intellectuals like architects and doctors in science, and also different other components of our population, especially the women and
the youth.
So
here I would like to bring one or two quick points. Governments need to display much better political will and commitment to bring disruptive agricultural technologies as catalysts for change.
Yes.
Whether it is biotechnology, whether it is processing technologies, whether it is modern tools that can improve farm productivity, improve nutritional security and environmental health, disruptive agricultural technologies. Research has a strong transformative power, and that transformative power has to be tapped in.
Yes.
We need institutions and partnerships. Dr. Canisius, partnerships. If that at various levels between public and private sector, between institutions and farming communities, between investors and other actors in the value chain, partnerships are in need.
And I will add one other thing, communication. Because we need absolutely to bring all these things we are talking about to the policymakers, to the decision makers, who will create the enabling environment for those technologies and other productivity enhancing factors to come into play, to be implemented. Yes, I want to thank you very much for this very rich conversation we have. I believe that we will have a continuation of the same.
Thank you so much.
The transformation of the agriculture in Africa is a continuous endeavor, and we need to accelerate the pace.
Yes.
So that in the next 10 years when we meet in this Kikao, we talk of a different thing and more success stories. Viewers, thank you very much for your listening. And I believe that you learned a lot from these gentlemen, and that you will contribute to transforming agricultural sector. We have all a role to play, independently from your specialization and your work in different areas of the economic development of your country, of your continent. I thank you very much, and I invite you to the next Kikao session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so that's the picture. Agriculture indeed has a place in transforming Africa's agriculture, and there is still more room to cover. This has been Kikao, your weekly focus on agriculture. Until next week, my name is Joe Agayo.